Hey there, Knicks fans. How you doing? It's your boy, Jonathan Macri, with you for another episode of the Knicks Film School Podcast, coming at you a week after the season has mercifully ended. I'm already feeling good about what lies ahead. All I needed was a little time away from the basketball, the actual basketball, before I could start feeling good about the basketball again. And of course, who would I rather talk to about all of those wonderful feelings as we head into yet another offseason? This could be the year. Jeremy Cohen. Hello, sir.
Hey, John. Man, it's great to watch playoff basketball. Disappointing to not have the Knicks in it, but the stress levels of my life are so much lower. Which, listen, I would love to be stressed out about the Knicks in the playoffs, but considering how they're not in it, it's just I can watch casually, and it's great. It's fun to watch basketball and not have stakes riding on it right and left.
We're recording this on Sunday at 8:20. Did you watch most of Brooklyn, Boston today?
I didn't. I was actually doing stuff for Easter, by the way. Happy Easter. And
oh, yes. Happy
celebrating. Happy Passover. Happy.
All of the things.
And yes, all the holidays. I caught the very end of it on the train, or at least waiting for the train. And the fourth quarter, from what I saw, was exhilarating. Yeah. And I know that a lot of the game was as well. I'm rooting begrudgingly, not for Brooklyn, but more against Boston.
Okay.
At the end of the day, it's great because I can either be happy about the Nets losing a series or the Celtics losing. It's a win-win. I
have to say, I was like, I didn't know that I'd be able to do this, but I was watching this and I'm like, this is just really good basketball. And that's the thing is like, I couldn't hate watch because I couldn't, like, I don't like either of these. I hate, unlike you, as we talked about, I hate Brooklyn more, but like, it was just, and then funny enough, yesterday, for the Wolves Grizzlies game, I watched pretty much the entire game with three guys from Minnesota, and who are one of them was like a big Wolves fan, the other two were a little bit more lukewarm. So that was an experience getting to watch that game with those folks. Shout out to apartment 1L in my building. But yeah,
1W, I should say now, right?
What's that?
1W.
Just wasting no time. Yeah. But it is fun. I mean, like, good basketball is still good basketball, and I think we love this. We love doing this. We love the Knicks because we love this sport first and foremost. At least I know that's true for me and you. Maybe not for everybody, but so yeah, it's been enjoyable. That shows what? One
key thing though that I want to say.
Yes, one key thing.
The difference in talent between a lot of these playoff teams and where the Knicks are at is stark.
Yes.
And like, I don't mean that as a slight. It's just, there are teams that are further along in their processes and they are really good. And there's some incredible stars. And obviously this is what we will be talking about starting today and moving forward, but just the immense level of talent that is on the floor and how important stars are. It just makes it makes a difference. It's a star league.
It's a star league now, and it's always been a star league. And I think, didn't matter. It really literally didn't matter which game you turned on this weekend. I'm trying to think if there was an exception to that. I mean, maybe Toronto, because Toronto is kind of built a little bit differently where they have like all of these guys who are like very good. They probably don't really have anybody who's like truly great. But for the most part, turn on any game. And you're going to see a guy like, holy shit, how is that guy doing that thing that he's doing? Or multiple guys, as was the case today in Boston. Anyway, this is a good transition, actually, because we're going to do our weekend review. And the first thing we have up here, courtesy of Andrew Claudio, always writes these babies up. And I think he has the appropriate thing first, which is Leon Rose's letter to season ticket holders. So I think I mentioned this a little bit on the mailbag pod that dropped on Friday, but I'll just say it again for anybody who may not have read it. Leon Rose, or someone who writes things with Leon Rose's name at the bottom, wrote a letter to all Knicks season ticket holders in which he basically talked about a little bit about the season that just passed. Obviously, they did not meet expectations and he also mentioned, next season and where the team is going. And I said it in the mailbag pod, and I'll say it again. The term young core was mentioned no less than 4 times. And there was did you like the passing reference to the veterans?
I did.
Our veterans are here to support the young core in case there's any misgiving. I usually, as you know, I don't put much stock into these sorts of things. I did put stock into this. I already said what I thought about it. I want to get your thoughts.
It means everything and nothing at the same time.
Well said.
I mean, listen, you can find whatever you want and apply it to whatever you want. If you want to say it's just PR bullshit because it's going out to season ticket holders, like I received an email and basically like, hey, thank you for spending money on this team that fell short of expectations. Here's what we have planned. Or to people maybe who had not signed up for season tickets to try to get them back in and lure them with limited time remaining before it expires. Or you could just look at it as like, no, this is actually kind of a direction, right? Where, as you said, mentioning the young core 4 times, the veterans is supporting them. To me, the biggest thing was I tweeted about this, but I looked back at the original letter that Leon Rose sent out when he first took over the Knicks. And it was very much begging for patience. And this one was much more about how exciting Knicks basketball is going to be. And it just reminded me how I know we are often, as Knicks fans, I don't want to say we're spoiled by last year, but I think there's a sense of jadedness. And it just goes to show how far this team has actually come around in just 2 years, which is, look, there's a lot of work to be done. Don't get me wrong. But it's nice to know that we went from a point, it was essentially the lowest, not the lowest, but one of the lowest points that you could imagine.
Well, I think it was pretty low.
Yeah. Yes. I would say probably summer 2019 was the lowest point because a lot of it had been building up to that. But
the 1920 team, not only were they so aesthetically unpleasing, but like there wasn't a whole lot, like there wasn't a whole lot of value on this roster where people like looked at like, oh, that guy has, not for the contracts they were under at the very least.
Right. So I was encouraged, but also it's the actions, not necessarily the words that matter. And it goes kind of hand in hand with the whole press conference thing where, again, like he is speaking, he's just not taking the questions that I think a lot of people want. And I understand where the beat is coming from, but Leon Rose is also still giving material. I just get the feeling that for a lot of people who want the beat to ask these tough questions, so to speak, it's mostly just accountability. It's trying to hold Leon Rose, the front office, accountable when my viewpoint is, look, like they know that they're accountable. We know they're accountable. We know it failed this season. They didn't make the playoffs. They didn't make the play-in. I understand the need for words to show, like them saying, I'm sorry. But what is that really going to do? We know that they're not going to be able to do anything in the postseason. Like the actions speak louder than the words themselves. So get to work, move on, and let's hope that speaks for it. And you know what? If it doesn't, then heads will start to begin rolling. But I hope that doesn't happen necessarily because I want things to build in the right way.
There's that term, build in the right way. If you put on a Steve Mills mask, I wouldn't know the difference. I thought of a couple of things as I've continued to think about the letter over the last few days. One, as I was watching the Nets today, remember when Kevin Durant said the Knicks weren't cool?
I do.
Remember that? That was a thing that happened. I was thinking about it today as I was watching them not play any defense. I mean, listen, Kyrie Irving is freaking amazing, and Kevin Durant's not bad himself. But like, anyway, we don't have to talk about the Nets. But like, I was thinking about that, and I was thinking about like this Knicks team compared to I think when he said that about the Knicks, and like they have come so far. And I actually kind of look at this Knicks roster and like what it could be next year. And that's actually going to transition into what we're going to spend the majority of this episode on, which is like, they have a lot of young players. Like, can they fit them all? And we'll get to that in a bit. But like, this team is cool. This team does have a lot of like genuinely exciting young talent. And I think it was smart for Leon Rose to emphasize that in the letter. And the other thing I'm thinking is based on what kind of you just pointed out about watching these playoff teams, like Knicks fans are smart. The front office theoretically is smart. They know how far away they are. They got, the win total. We don't know how they didn't get actually that close, but like the win total made us all feel like, oh, they got kind of close. They went for it last summer. Low risk moves didn't work out. Let's reassess. Where are we? Well, we're not that close. So let's emphasize what we have that's going right the young players, which then leads us to our next part of Week in Review, which is something said by one Marc Berman, friend of the show, Marc Berman, who went on the KOT show and said, this is in quotes, so I'm going to read this in quotes, Andrew, if that's okay.
Go right ahead.
Quote, this is from Marc Berman. Thibs regrets not playing the kids sooner. I actually had not seen this until you put it in the rundown. So I've had not that much time to think about it, but I do have some thoughts. What, Jeremy, what?
Go ahead.
Yeah.
No, he mentioned on another show too. I want to give credit. I'm just unfortunately.
Here's the deal. Marc Berman did like a mini press tour.
He did a press tour
for some reason last week on a bunch of different Knicks content creators that weren't us. So shout out to them for getting the get, and shout out to
Berman. Didn't ask him to come on. We haven't asked Mark to come on since
really okay. Yeah,
I know. I'm just saying, like, shout out to them for getting Marc Berman on their show. Awesome. By the way, Fred Katz on the pod this week, making sure you guys know we do have people on the Knicks beat that come on our podcast. Point being said, he said multiple different ways. I know he was on with Alex on Knicks Jets, etc. Alex and John on Knicks Jets, etc. So he did that, and he did Nick of Time, and he did one more that I saw. And for all I know, he's on like 3 more this week, and he's just spacing it out each week. But the point is, the sentiment, before I give the ball back to Jeremy, is that he was saying the line that we heard, that there was, I don't want to say a call for his head, that Thibs was like on the hot seat at the All-Star break, but there were people in the organization that wanted to get rid of Thibs, and Leon nixed that.
He reported that in his writing this week as well.
He reiterated that and then said, I've been told that Tom Thibodeau does feel regret about not playing the younger players sooner. And it caught Nick's Twitter off guard, that just like was a throwaway line, and it caught shout out Jay Ellis and his panel off guard, and at least the Nick of Time show clip that we posted.
My response to this is I sure as fuck hope so that he regrets that. Like, yeah, I mean, you want to tell me like this shows growth in Tom Thibodeau? I don't know about that. Is Tom Thibodeau ever going to grow in the ways that many Knicks fans want him to grow? You know, I'll believe it when I see it. But yeah, I hope he regrets it. And if this is a sign that of the direction that because like, look, ultimately he's not in control of his job. Other people are in control of his job, and there are people within the organization that wanted him to lose his job. I believe that piece of reporting, because like, it doesn't take a lot to go from the Yahoo report that came out, which was that Wes was whispering in Dolan's ear, to there are people in the front office that wanted Thibs gone at a certain point. It's just how close they got. I don't think they got that close. In any case, he knows this is it. He knows this is last year. He knows if he steps wrong, or, it's like none of this stuff is very mysterious. So if whatever is going on, his regret, not regret, whatever the hell it is, leads to them leaning more into the youth, God bless. I don't even really care. Jeremy, your thoughts?
I have the other show, by the way, Jeremy. The streets are buzzing.
I'll bet they are.
Line Knicks Buzz or New York Buzz. Berman's been on there. Yeah, buzz like a bee. The streets are buzzing. Berman's been on here a couple times, so they're buzzing with Berman.
Fly like a Berman, sting like a bee.
There you go. Jeremy, go ahead.
I would hope that he feels regret.
Yes.
But it's more just 2 things. First is it's infuriating once again, because people have been calling for him to play the younger players, and he would either basically say, you're not in the room, you don't watch the film, or basically just like mocking them in some way, or again, you can use this word, gaslighting fans about this process. And so for him to then be like, maybe I should have done this. It's like, look, we can talk about the fact that Thibs has a far better basketball mind, that he will forget about more basketball than a lot of Knicks fans in general will remember collectively, right? But at the same time, it's like this was very apparent, and the lack of switching up when you needed to just showed a stubbornness that he kind of banked on because he thought it would get better, and it didn't. And then the season went down the drain. And it's like, yeah, I mean, like, gee, I regret not investing in a great company years ago when it was doing, when the stock was little. Like, of course you're going to regret that. But it's just, it's frustrating to hear. But I think the second thing, it's fascinating to me that it's coming out now, because it's coming out right alongside the Leon Rose letter. And it just feels like there's kind of this clear-cut message that's being sent out. Like Thibs he's been carrying water Berman's been carrying water for Thibs this entire year, and it's very evident in the reporting that he's done. So if I keep saying Thibs versus Berman, because to me, they're so interconnected that I feel like I listen to the same person when I read them. But when Berman goes on these shows and makes the rounds, to me, it's like, Berman, listen, I need you to start massaging this and saying, listen, I was in the wrong. We didn't have a great season, but we all have the same message, right? Because there's one unified message coming from the Knicks right now, and it's the youth. And that is how you try to sell fans. And it's also how you try to, try to inflate your assets. Or maybe like you try to consider the fact of the veterans are here, but you're not building around that core, because people have this idea that it's like, there's the win now group and the win later group, but the win later group is winning now. That I think is all accurate. But it's like, are you building around the vets? Or are you building around the young players? And to me, it has always been that they are building around the youth, and they are using the older players to take the pressure away, to be used as matching salary, to turn free agency and trades into valuable pieces later on, and to just help with overall development. We can disagree in terms of how those levels of getting developed are, where if this player should have played more, that player should have played less, whatever it is. But it's a unified message of reinforcing that they're trying to stay with one group. And you know what? The whole thing could just be ridiculous BS. And they could say, yeah, these are the young players, and we're going to ship them out, and we're going to get win now talent. And here you go. But something about it doesn't feel like that. It feels very much more like, again, we've been building steadily. We haven't made any major moves, and we're fine with that. And you should be fine with that, because we believe in the long term of this team. We've seen the short term fixes. I mean, Leon Rose was here. He was Melo's agent. How many times was he an agent for other players in New York, and see every Band-Aid fix just falling by the wayside? So I firmly believe that he understands it's the long-term trajectory. Don't do a quick fix. And we'll see what this summer holds. But I just think the whole Thibs message, it's falling in line.
It is. Here's the other thing, though. It goes right to what you were just saying, and what Knicks fans have been saying for months about why it's infuriating. It's again, and I kind of wrote about this at the beginning of last week about, like, was this season a waste in terms of like what else could have been done? It's one thing if you make an organizational decision to go with the youth because it's where you're at as a team and it's like the right thing to do, even if it may not lead to better basketball. This youth movement arguably would have led to better basketball. And so for them to lean into the youth right now and say we're building around the youth, it's a different way of saying we're going to build around our best players moving forward. And for the first time in a long time, the Knicks can say genuinely that our best players are our young players, and that I don't want that to come out as a shot against, I guess it is kind of a shot at Julius Randle and like Evan Fournier, but like there's a very definitive ceiling on what those guys are. Alec Burks, going to throw him in there too. Derrick Rose because of age, and the kids, it's like, well, we don't know what the ceiling is on a few of them. So it works out. It's convenient. It makes sense. Everything makes sense. For as frustrating as this season was, they're in a place right now where it's like they have a very clear roadmap. There are only a couple of question marks as to, the specific turns. Like they know where they kind of want to get to in terms of the specific turns they want to take on their way there. That's still up in the air, which leads us to our third topic of the week. The traveling Knicks front office, the traveling sideshow. I saw Mark Stein compared this to when the Clippers brass started watching all the Raptors games when they were courting Kawhi before they ended up signing him into free agency. So Worldwide Wes and Allen Houston, as well as Julius Randle, we'll get to that in a second, went to watch game one, Mavs Jazz. I'm going to ask you, Jeremy, when you saw that, I first saw it when it was reported on ESPN, and then I think they showed Houston. They didn't show Wes on TV. What was your first thought when you saw that?
I mean, my first thought was, oh yeah, they're here to scout Donovan Mitchell and or Jalen Brunson. My
first thought was Donovan Mitchell, and then I'm like, oh wait, no, it's Brunson. But my first thought was Mitchell. But I've since come to it's Brunson. It's got to be Brunson.
I mean, they also know Wes is close with both players.
Yeah, of course.
So, and like, do they have a whole lot other to do right now? Like, I mean that in a way, like they are working, but
they are working.
That's Wes's bread and butter. Like, I would hope he has nothing better to do, because that is the job that he specializes in. It's being a people person like that. That's why it was so like, yeah, I would imagine they're there, but I also would imagine that there are probably other executives that were not nearly as heralded or as popular as they were. I mean, we saw it, and it's tweeted about, it's shown on ESPN, it's publicized.
Yeah.
I don't like to get into the whole like Knicks for clicks thing often, because, but this felt like, again, you're pointing out something that is, sure, it's obvious and it's your job as journalists to report it, but let's be real. We know that there are other scouts in the building, but
but
have the headlines.
They had a front row seat, Jeremy.
I'm aware. I'm fully aware they had a front row seat. I get it. And there was also their head international scout was there.
Oh, I didn't know that. Okay.
And Dennis Smith Jr., who, of course, the Knicks traded away. That's the thing. They're Knicks ties for sure, but they're also just like Dallas roots, like with Julius Randle. He's from Dallas.
So
the Knicks are on half last year's Knicks are the Mavs.
No, there's a lot. Look, there's a lot of ties. I get it. You could, was it Mitchell? Was it Brunson? What'd you make of Randle being there as well? I mean, he was sitting with Wes, which again, we could sit here and come with all kinds of cockamamie conspiracy theories. He's from Dallas, as you said. That's where his home is. Did you take anything from that in terms of like, well, this makes it more likely that Julius Randle is going to be back, makes it less likely that Julius Randle is going to be back? I don't know. My brain is broken when it comes to that.
I think my first thought was, honestly, why is Allen Houston not sitting with Wes and Julius? And then my second thought was, did Wes and Allen Houston go to sit together, and then they saw Julius, and then Julius swapped seats because Wes was like, Julius, I want you to sit with me. So Allen Houston went to the seat that Julius was in. I don't know. Honestly, I really don't care, because at the moment, Julius Randle.
I care. Now you got my mind working.
Maybe. But like, that's the way I see it, where I know that a lot of people may have gone to a darker place, like, oh no, that means Julius is going to be here. And look, if that's the case, then I respect it. Maybe he is still a member of the Knicks in next season. But I also kind of thought, I was like, well, Julius is also here right now. Basically, if anything, if there were this sort of idea that Julius did not want to be in New York, that he didn't get along well with people, having him be front and center, like, listen, we're together. There's synergy here. Like, we're all good. There are no problems here. That is the perfect way to show it.
We're not desperate to trade this guy. What are you talking about? He's a happy family. One big happy fucking family.
And then you pull them together like this guy, the guy who, posted 20, 10, and 5. Oh, we love him. We don't want to do anything. No, that's why
he had a rough year. We still believe in him.
Right. So I see a photo, and you could take it either way. You really could. You could say this is good for trading him. You could say this is bad for trading him, whatever, or not for trading him, but like in terms of keeping him or not. It doesn't matter. It's a photo. We'll see everything that happens and go from there.
Yes, we will. I'm not going to think about this one any more than I already did, because it'll start to drive me crazy. I do.
Yeah, so that was one thing before we move on to the next topic,
please.
So last week, when the Raptors and the Knicks played, and the Knicks won, and there was this whole thing about like the idea that Knicks fans rooting for a win is despicable, because how could they do that? And the tanking odds, the lottery. And again, I was fine with them losing the game. It was the folks who were so adamant that rooting for the Knicks to win meant that you're not really a fan. Well, the Pelicans made it into the playoffs, which meant that the Knicks wound up being in the 11th seed regardless, or the 11th place overall for tanking. And it just felt like humble pie in a way that was like, we don't have to tear into each other when I was happy to celebrate a win and not just because it was a clincher for my victory. I was happy because I enjoyed seeing the Knicks win. And it didn't really matter at that point. Like, I didn't see the difference. So it was great to see, like, sure, it's great that the Knicks have increased their odds by a smidge. I still don't expect them to move up. Maybe they do. But
listen, don't poo-poo 9.4%.
No, I don't. It's more just the idea of like, see, all is right in the world after all. And there was a lot of anger that was coming from there. And I just kind of want to follow up on it because I didn't think it was right that people should be called out for wanting the Knicks to win. And they made it 11th overall, which is what people wanted going into that game anyway. So it all worked out.
Jeremy, if this year has made anything clear to me, it is that people are going to get angry about the things that they want to get angry about when watching their basketball team. And you know what? It is best to let that anger be out in the universe and have its healthy release, because it's not good to keep anger in. You want to release it. And that is why Twitter was invented. And shout out to the fine folks who make that service available to all.
Don't worry, Elon Musk is going to fix everything. Don't worry about it. He's got so many great plans. We're going to be running Twitter on the moon in like 3 years, guys. Don't worry. Anti-gravitational tweeting, is that? Yes. Don't worry. Do you even know? You have no idea what we're talking about, do you?
I do, actually.
Oh, you do?
Yes, I do. I do know about
Wow.
this.
Okay. So, by the way, should we just also place a bid for Twitter? Like Knicks Film School buys Twitter?
I'll bid $1.
We're there. Just the press headline is Knicks Film School submits bid to buy Twitter.
If you can take care of that for us, Andrew, that would be
deal.
glorious.
On it tomorrow. That's the episode headline. Cap or no cap? We're buying Twitter.
Buying Twitter.